Hey, this is the Subspace Transmissions podcast. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Cam.
Cam, we are tackling 30 years of Star Trek The Next Generation and why the show seems to endure so well this week. We've got a pretty stacked episode ahead of us.
It's an episode that will remind you of your own mortality.
Okay, but why don't we kind of give it a bit of a sneak peek at this point here? Because what we do throughout this episode, we're tackling characters, the movie franchise, cool aliens, its overall legacy, but we also intermix that with talks about 5 episodes each that we think really exemplify the series. Why don't we talk about some of the episodes that did not necessarily make the cut here, Cam?
Right.
Let's start with you, sir.
I left off the episode The Offspring, despite the fact I talked about it in the Beginner's Guide to Star Trek as, a great entry point for prospective Star Trek fans. I left it off, guys.
That only tells you how great all your other picks are going to be. But why do you think The Offspring is such a great way to exemplify what Star Trek's Next Generation is all about?
It's just one of the great character episodes for Data, obviously. You've got great stuff with Picard going up against Data, the dynamics between those two, as well as just the idea of what represents an individual. And this is a concept that TNG in particular really went back to time and time again, often with very rich rewards. Some of them you may see in this episode.
Okay. One that did not make my list for the upcoming podcast episode was The Defector. Such a strong Romulan episode where you're kind of questioning what's going on the entire time. But I love how Star Trek The Next Generation always made you question kind of what was right, what was wrong, and what you should do. The best part of Next Generation is where the characters really had only bad decisions ahead of them.
Right.
And they didn't really know what they were doing all the time. Sometimes we saw these characters were just a little bit too perfect.
Right.
I love an episode dealing with Romulan spies and defectors. It really shows you why the Romulans turned into such great antagonists for the Next Gen crew.
Right. Okay, well, an episode I left off too, and this one, it kind of kills me because I love it so much. It's the episode Relics, where Scotty shows up in the 24th century, and we get this amazing scene of Scotty and Picard sitting on a recreation of the original TOS bridge. My bridge, being the TOS nerd. Fan service is amazing, but is this a quintessential TNG episode? I had to decide no.
Yeah, I think the only issue is that it's a bit of an anomaly.
Yeah.
But I love the stuff like the Dyson Sphere. Mm-hmm. That's such a next-gen kind of concept, realized on the small screen. But there's just so many great moments that if you try to turn a fan on to next-gen with Relics, it's going to be tough for them to say, what is this?
Right.
Yeah. Another one for me, I guess I like it when Star Trek gets dark, and I have to go with The Wounded. This is the introduction, of course, of the Cardassians, and we have the former captain that takes it upon himself to go start attacking those Cardassians, and O'Brien's got to get in there with his former commander and make him realize, look, we're not at war anymore, and maybe there's more to these guys than what you're expecting. For the introduction of an alien, I think this really spells out the reason why we have the Cardassians popping up in Deep Space Nine, why they were such an enduring legacy for DS9 as well, and they got their start here in Star Trek The Next Generation, and I think The Wounded is a really good example of how Next Gen can really, really foster amazing stories by kind of showing the humanity that exists within alien species as well.
Very true, and we talk a little more about that in this podcast episode, so it's worth checking out, people. And lastly, this is an episode that's iconic. Fans love it. They love to use memes of it, but it didn't make my list, and that's the episode Cupid, which, of course, has the famous I Am Not a Merry Man. We get to go to Sherwood Forest. Q's in it. We all love Q, right? Did Q make my list? Only one way to find out. Okay, this episode.
Wait,
it's fun,
Cam.
But
you don't like this episode, though.
But this is a quintessential TNG episode to a lot of people.
Okay.
I can't give away some of the quintessential ones I left off my list because, spoilers for you guys. It'd be no fun. But this is one I think a lot of people hold in high regard. And maybe they don't listen week to week to hear me slam this episode in the past.
I can't get over the fact that of your list of top TNG episodes that really exemplify the series, you put on one that you're kind of lukewarm on, to put it mildly.
That is correct.
You're a man of mystery.
I am.
Okay, well, I'm not going to be like Cam. Last episode here on my list, before you guys get to the real list on this week's podcast, I go with the next phase. This is, of course, is more Romulan intrigue, but Ro and Geordi, they end up in this weird cloaking device malfunction, and they essentially are able to walk through matter, and no one else can see them. It's kind of like this existential journey to a certain degree. Every time you give Geordi some cool episodes to do, I always dig it, whether he's kind of the Manchurian candidate, or he's turning into some sort of weird kind of alien creature. Strong Geordi episodes always do it for me, and I think the next phase is just such fun, high concept, sci-fi. I love it when Next Gen goes high concept.
Yeah, very much so. And, just a bonus one, Up the Long Ladder didn't make my list, but it was close.
Well, if you're putting episodes like Cupid on your list, I'm surprised that Up the Long
Not
Ladder...
on my list.
Okay. Well, guys, tune in this week. We have a great discussion, and we also kind of give people an idea of what we're going to be doing when it comes to Star Trek Discovery.
Yep.
Keep tuning in, because next time you'll see us, we'll be having a lot to share about Star Trek Discovery.
Hopefully good.